And welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Ballard here to give you the latest in the sporting world. Mitch, we're now in the second and final episode of the week. We have a lot to talk about. Tournament action is in full form. We have a number of some news stories that are coming out this morning to talk about, and we have some games coming up this weekend that are sure to be very exciting.
Mitch, we are almost at the Sweet 16 point girls basketball. We're going to get that decided this upcoming weekend. We're going to figure out who's going to the round of 32 in boys basketball in the state of Ohio at all the respective divisions. Browns news, even though it's not football season. Guardians opening up spring training, like Cavs back in action. We're packed again.
No doubt, no doubt. And we start off here by wanting to remind you guys, first of all, we want to thank you for watching us or listening to the podcast. If you want to find us on any podcasting platforms that are the usual suspects, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud audio only, Spotify and YouTube audio and video options. You can also find us on our website, bigtimesportsohio.com. Find our latest game broadcasts and articles and videos there. You can also check us out on Twitter at BTS Ohio or Big Time Sports Ohio on Facebook and Instagram, and then at Mitch Spinell and at Mitch Abala, pretty much anywhere you can find someone's social media platform. So, Mitch, we start off with the girls tournament here as my light becomes unplugged for a second. A lot of the games on Tuesday were mainly made up of some boys action beginning in Tuscarawas County with some Stark girls play as well. Then it was the opposite on Wednesday, where you have a number of Stark County girls squads playing in the districts and the Tuscarawas County teams the Tuscarawas County teams playing in the districts, while we had Stark boys play in the sectionals. We'll start off with the girls section here because a number of the Stark County teams are still in it here in this tournament mix. So why don't we go over some of the teams that you have been focusing on in the last couple of days who are still in contention for a Sweet 16 spot?
So, Mitch, for up here, we're going to stay on Division 1 in Northeast Districts 1, 2, and 3. Let's start in Northeast District number 1, where the top seed in this district is the Lady Pups of Canton McKinley High School. And Mitch, they might be one of the hottest teams in the state. This is a team that early on this season dropped a couple games to open the season. They beat a very talented Solon Comets team, which we'll get to Solon here in this segment. But McKinley is the number 2 overall seed in the Super District, and they have advanced to the district championship, which will be played at Maslin Perry High School Friday night, where they will take on the 5th seeded Walsh Jesuit Warriors. That is going to be a thriller, Mitch. The first of 3 potential thrillers we're going to talk about here for girls basketball. McKinley defeated Akron Ellett 66-32 in the district semifinal game 2. On the other side of that bracket, you had Walsh Jesuit defeating Paynesville Riverside 50-40, as I'm going to make sure I can share the screen here for the viewers at home now that I just realized that. So here we have it pulled up. This is Northeast Bracket District 1. So you have Walsh Jesuit and Canton McKinley battling it out to advance to the Sweet 16, the Medina region, next Tuesday night. Now, the Northeast District 1 will play the Northeast District 3 winner. So we're going to jump right to Northeast District 3. In this district championship game, you have the top overall seed Solon Comets. And Mitch, they might be one of the best teams in the state of Ohio right now. I do not believe they've gotten the respect they deserve. They have, if you look at their scores here, Mitch, they have not really had a close game at all. They played in the sectional semifinal game, won 75-16, then an 89-9 victory in the sectional championship. And then they took on Perry in game 1 on Tuesday night, Maslin Perry, and defeated the Perry Panthers 71-35. There was a running clock with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. And for those there, Mitch, there was a lot of people unaware. But yes, this year is the first year there's a running clock in high school basketball. Now, I highly doubt you're going to see a running clock the rest of the tournament throughout the rest of the season. But the rule is once a team is up by 35 points, the running clock starts.
Yep.
And the running clock does not stop until the team trailing cuts it below 30. Unfortunately, Perry was not able to get below 30. So Solon, the number 1 overall seed, has advanced to the Division 1 Northeast District 3 district championship game on Friday night at Ravenna High School. And who are they going to play, Mitch? They're going to play Jackson. Jackson Lady Polar Bears defeated Hudson 65-33 to kind of end the Cinderella story that Hudson was as the 24 seed, winning their first 2 tournament games, beating Lake and then beating Louisville. Jackson beat Hudson 65-33 on Tuesday night, the second game of that doubleheader at Ravenna. And Mitch, this now sets up a potential instant classic. These two teams, Solon and Jackson, met earlier on this season. Solon trailed Jackson for the first 31 minutes and 10 seconds of the ball game. They took their first lead with about 50 seconds to go in the contest and ended up defeating Jackson 54-53 at Jackson High School early December this season. And really, these are two teams that are just hot right now, right? Solon's been hot for a long time. Jackson is finally back and healthy. The big three of Lauren Pilata, Lena Patabandla, and Megan Campbell are all back and playing well. This is going to be a blast at Ravenna High School. And why I brought up Northeast District 3, the winner of this game will play the winner of Walsh Jesuit and Canton McKinley next Tuesday night at 8:00 at Medina High School. That's the second game of a doubleheader in the Sweet 16. There's a chance, Mitch, that you could see a Federal League rematch in the regional semifinals, much like last year when Jackson played Green, or you could see a rematch between Solon and McKinley. McKinley defeated Solon earlier on this season at the field house in overtime, or Walsh Jesuit could put an end to that, and we could have a new matchup for the first time this season. There's a lot to play for. You have perhaps one of the hottest and best teams in the state in Solon. Jackson, with all the experience of that state Final Four run last year. I am so excited for this game Friday night. I will be at Ravenna calling it. I literally am already excited, and it's Thursday morning as we sit here and record this. And we'll go over to Division I Northeast District number 2. We have another regular season rematch, Mitch. The Archbishop Hoban Knights, the 6th seed, will take on the Lady Bulldogs of Green High School. These two teams met in the regular season. Hoban defeated Green. Hoban defeated Shaker Heights 53-39 in the district semifinal game. And Green defeated a very tough and 4th-seeded Shaker Heights Hathaway Brown team to get to the district championship. Mitch, there's a chance that there are 3 Federal League teams in the Division I region when we look at Medina next week. If Green, McKinley, and Jackson all win, all 3 of those teams will be playing Tuesday night at Medina High School. Green would play the winner of the Northeast District 4. And like I mentioned, there's a chance Jackson and McKinley could play each other, but we'll have to wait and see. There was no easy game the remaining way here for any of these teams. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be chaotic, and it's going to be hectic, and I'm here for it the rest of the way. Obviously, hoping these Federal League teams and teams in Stark County can represent the county well and make a deep postseason run, because I think that makes our job a lot easier and a little more fun and entertaining. But Friday night is going to be fun, either at Maslin Perry High School, Ravenna High School, or Perry High School up on the lake, which is where this game between Green and Hoban will be played. So lots to play for here. Lots of teams still in the area being represented. I can't wait to see what happens.
Federal League will be hosting a number of games here in the next coming days, a number of its own teams still in the mix for the title. Now, there was also some boys action on Wednesday that we'll get to alongside the Tuscarawas County results from this past Tuesday. Now, a lot of the boys sectionals got underway for my area, where you saw on Tuesday night, Strasburg, Sandy Valley, and Malvern still in the sectional mix after beating, respectively, Strasburg beating Central Catholic, Sandy Valley beating Tusky Valley, and Malvern just all over Edison. And you also had Buckeye Trail, the number 9 seed in the Division III East bracket, beating 2nd-seeded Martins Ferry. That was a big victory in which Garrett Berger was able to sink a winning free throw with actually 90 seconds left in the game, and the Warriors made a defensive stand to move on to the next round. And then you had on Wednesday, or actually that same night, Minerva getting an overtime victory over Morgan, which Garrett Gonzalez proves himself to be one of the top players, not just in the EBC, but in this entire area, 22 points. He also had Rowan Hoffey, who had 19 points on that game. So that was a big win for the Lions, then as they advance in the Division II sectional bracket. And then on the girls' side, you had River putting an end to Central Catholic's season on Wednesday in the district semis. Riley Knight posting a double-double of 19 points and 12 boards for the Pilots. Central Catholic got to the districts for the first time since 2006. A great season by them, but it comes to an end. Also seeing their season come to an end, the Strasburg Tiger girls, after losing to Highland by kind of a close score in comparison to other ones, 44-36 on Wednesday night. So the Hawks reached their 12th consecutive East District final. You also had Union Local beating West Muskingum. In that game, you had Reagan Vinskovich being, I believe, the 9th member of her conference's history to score 2,000 points for a high school career, as the Jets won 62-45, and they're going to take on Fort Fry in the district semis after the cadets beat the Trojans of Tusky Valley 43-34 on Wednesday. So Tusky Valley season come to an end as well. Not a great day for IVC teams in the district level. You also had John Glenn pulling out a huge win over Carrollton in the East District semis in Division 2. Emma Dolan making a game-winning layup as time expired to give the Muskies a victory, and they will play top-seeded West Holmes. That game will be this Saturday at 1 o'clock at Dover High School. So we'll have some area play over at Dover. And then I want to talk about this game, Mitch, because you were there that night. The boys action that Jackson had. You mentioned Jackson beating Akron Ellett to advance in the Northeast 2 sectional semifinal. Mitch Feinfrock, 21 points in the first half on 7 3-pointers, and 83-50 Jackson pulls off over Ellett. Willoughby South is going to have a lot of offense to have to handle this coming Saturday.
Mitch, you texted me last night once I sent the tweet out at the halftime update.
Yeah.
Akron Ellett played Jackson tough in that first quarter. You have to give the Orangemen of Ellett High School a lot of credit. And then they ran into one of the best shooting performances I've ever seen in a half in Mitch Finnefrock. He had 3 made 3-pointers in the first quarter. And Mitch, it's pretty common that you see Mitch Finnefrock pop up in a box score for 2 to 4 made threes a game. He hit 7 in the first half, Mitch. He hit 4 in the second quarter. He was 7 of 12 from behind the arc in the first half alone. There was a couple heat checks in there, and Mitch, even the misses there was a couple that were halfway down and popped out. He was on fire last night. And this is just a sophomore, Mitch. Funny, his name is Mitch Finnefrock too. There's just a lot of greatness in that name, I think. But it was a spectacular performance from Finnefrock. It really allowed Jackson to get some breathing room in the opening round of the sectional semifinals. And Mitch, you see it a lot. And this will be an instance here as Jackson now welcomes in the 32nd seeded Rebels of Willoughby South High School on Saturday night. Jackson's a team that likes to play right away. They want to try to get their legs back under them. They want to try to get in a rhythm. And Mitch Finnefrock did that for Jackson. I would have to think he may have had more. He only shot 1 in the second half, came up empty-handed. He did hit a layup, so he finished with 23 points in that 83-50 win last night over Akron Ellett. But because Jackson was up by such a wide margin, a lot of the starters got pulled early. A lot of bench players came in. Some guys that were on the JV team this year that are dressing for the playoff run got some action last night in the fourth quarter. But a spectacular shooting performance from Mitch Finnefrock. And you mentioned it, Jackson now will advance to take on Willoughby South in the sectional championship Saturday night at Jackson. And I'm going to share the screen here, Mitch, once again for the viewers watching at home. And if you're listening, I'll describe it the best I can. But we saw Canton McKinley win last night, Mitch. So they advance and they will take on Nordonia. But staying in this Northeast 2 Division I bracket, Aurora plays the top-seeded Bulldogs of Stowe High School. You have Dover, a team in your area, hosting Paynesville Riverside. I know earlier this week we were trying to figure out who they would be hosting. We now have that opponent. So I know you'll probably have some more on that. Green will now play Warren Harding, who defeated Boardman last night 44-35. The winner of Green and Harding and Jackson and Willoughby South, Mitch, will play in the district semifinal next Thursday, March 2nd at 7 o'clock at Alliance High School. And we had already kind of foreshadowed this, Mitch. It could be a Federal League rematch between the two teams that tied atop and split the Federal League crown, Green and Jackson. And boy, oh boy, how crazy would that be? It's going to be a lot to win that district as Stowe is in there, and Stowe is, Mitch, they're legit. There's really not much more I can say. Stowe beat both Jackson and Green this regular season. We'll have to see who they play should they advance the district championship. I mentioned the Canton McKinley Bulldogs. They defeated Euclid last night, 65-50. They now play Nordonia, who's the 3rd overall seed. Mitch, if the Canton McKinley Bulldogs decide to show up and play the way they're capable of, we might be talking about our first upset in boys basketball here in these districts. McKinley seeded 13th. I give them a realistic chance against Nordonia, but Nordonia is very talented. They just beat Green last week, held the Green Bulldogs to 34 points in that contest. They're a very talented and gritty defensive team. So we'll have to wait and see. Hoban won. Massillon with a very impressive win last night. They knock off Hudson 52-50. They advance to take on Hoban. So you have Massillon versus Hoban in basketball now. We saw that this year in the regional final in football. We know there's no love lost between those two schools when it comes to any sport played between the two. And Glen Oak, Mitch, in our big time sports game of the week last night, you had Dave Sheets and Troy Richardson on the call.
Yes.
For a thriller. Glen Oak defeats Lake 44-39 in a game that baskets were hard to come by. It was back and forth. Lake with a lead after one, Glen Oak with a lead at the halftime. I saw it was 30-30 at one point. And Glen Oak not upsets. They were the top seed. Lake unable to pull the upset on Glen Oak. And so now, after they had split the regular season series with both teams winning on the opponent's home court, Glen Oak defends home court last night. They will now host Austin Town Fitch on Saturday night in the sectional championship. And looking at some other Stark County teams here, you have Louisville hosting Solon on Saturday night in the Northeast 3 Division I district. And Hoover will travel to Walsh Jesuit Saturday night in the sectional championship. Keep in mind, Hoover has already beaten Walsh Jesuit once this year. So that'll be a game. Throw the seeds out the window at this point, Mitch, because I think it's safe to say you can tell by some of these teams advancing, the regular season record really doesn't show you or tell you the full story about some of these teams. Hoover's one of them. They played in a tough conference. I'm excited to see if Hoover can go 2-0 against a very talented Warriors team from Walsh Jesuit High School, and then potentially play Louisville, who, Mitch, might have one of the best scores in all of the brackets in Northeast Ohio, and Will Aljancic. I know he's itching to get back and make a deep run. Last year, they had their season ended to St. Vincent St. Mary's in the regional final. Both of them now moving from Division II to Division I this year. And there's a chance those two schools could meet in the district championship, as they are both in the same district. But lots of basketball to be played, lots of great basketball to be played. And it's unfortunate that we're at the time where it's win or go home for some of these teams. But this is where we're at. And we could talk Monday and have a lot of Federal League teams remaining, Mitch, or we could talk Monday and have a lot of Federal League teams out of the postseason because some other teams were able to pull upsets.
No doubt. And you also had Akron St. Vincent St. Mary up there, the number 2 seed in that same level, taking on Kent Roosevelt for that one. That's a team to look out for, the Fighting Irish, each and every year. And also with that Dover game in Northeast bracket 2, that game between was it Riverside and Dover. You can find that game coming this Friday on our live stream on BigTimeSportsOhio.com. That is courtesy of the local broadcast network. You can also check out the replays of that game on Saturday at 11 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. You can check that out on cable TV Spectrum 15 or 989, depending on your area, or as well as MCT 128, or on our website, WIVMTV.com. So, Mitch, when we come back here, we're going to talk more about, actually, no, before this, we go to break. I want to bring this up, and I don't mean to spring this on you, but this whole thing that we kind of talked about, what was it, last night? This high school level story where you don't really see things like this particularly often, but it was a story that was officially announced by the OHSAA yesterday. There is a team now that has been removed from the girls basketball tournament due to, from what it seems, their second infraction when it comes to recruiting this season. Toledo Central Catholic has been removed from the Division II District 3 tournament, despite being the top seed at 22-2 on the year. And Napoleon, who Central Catholic beat in the tournament, they basically get resurrected, and they will play in the district tournament semifinal game on Thursday against Oak Arbor at White House Anthony Wayne. I mean, it's such a fascinating story where you see a team in tournament get replaced. I mean, we've seen teams in the past, like Afrocentric, win the state championship and then have their record expunged due to infractions. I believe there was another school, Harvest Prep, who had that a couple years ago after losing to Highland in the championship game. But I've never seen a situation like this, at least not one in a long time, where a team gets knocked out in the tournament, not due to what happens on the court, but what happens off.
Yeah, Mitch, you want to talk about a whirlwind of emotions, specifically for Napoleon. This is a team, Mitch, that probably shed some tears after their loss to Toledo Central Catholic, and they thought their season was over. And meanwhile, the top seeded TCC team thought they were moving on, and here now they are removed by the OHSAA, and Napoleon is reinstated because of this recruiting violation. I have that you we're kind of talking about it back and forth. There is a report out there now. I'm not going to sit here and read the report. I will let the viewers and listeners do it themselves out there. But Toledo Central Catholic did finally cooperate with, launched an investigation and found out Toledo Central Catholic made a recruiting violation, talking to a student athlete that had not yet enrolled to the school. It was at what this report says now, the third bylaw infraction by the school this year, which is why they were removed from the postseason. We have a coach now who is not with the team. They also apparently will be ineligible for postseason play moving forward for the next 2 seasons. This is just something we're not used to, something we don't see. And unfortunately, it's come to light here. And what's really unfortunate, Mitch, is these coaches, obviously we know private schools can recruit and public schools cannot. It's more heartbreaking to me, or for me, in my opinion, because the girls are the ones that suffer here the most. A team with these talented players work hard regular to get this number 1 overall seed that was looking to make a deep tournament run is done because of miscues and errors by the coaching staff. And to me, that is what is really unfortunate, is you have actual student athletes here who have their season ending a lot earlier than anticipated because of something that was out of their control. It's going to be something to keep an eye on. Obviously, I'm not going to speculate, but you always hear rumors of other teams doing things like this, but this team got caught. They have a number of things they have to do now. And unfortunately for those girls, for Toledo Central Catholic, their season ended abruptly and very much sooner than anticipated. And for Napoleon, like I mentioned, this is a team that I'm imagining, Mitch, had some seniors and other players shed tears after their loss to Toledo Central Catholic, and then probably gets a call within 2-3 days saying, hey, by the way, you're back in the tournament. Tell your student athletes to get back in the gym and start practicing. And here's who you're playing now. So it's very odd. It's something we're not familiar with, but this is a big story that I believe is probably going to get more steam heading throughout the rest of the postseason, especially if Napoleon is able to spring an upset now in the district championship game over Oak Harbor on Thursday night. This is a very big story and something we're going to have to keep an eye on.
I should have to correct myself too. This is the third recruiting bylaw infraction that the OHSAA has learned about this school year by TCC. They were publicly recommend among the sanctions to Central Catholic. They were publicly reprimanded for their second girls basketball program violation of this nature. The assistant coach was prohibited from coaching during this upcoming girls basketball tournament. The school was required to conduct a recruiting seminar led by an OHSAA compliant staff member for all head coaches and any personnel deemed appropriate. The school was fined $2,500, and Toledo Central Catholic's girls program was placed on probation through the 2024-25 school year. So you have this season, you have 23-24, and then the year after that, and then you're off probation. So it's a tough blow for a program that seemed to be having some very good success this season, but unfortunately it will be some time before they will be fully clear of these sanctions. We come back, we'll be going over what's been going on in the sporting world. Looks like the Browns have a new, not a new head coach, time will tell, but they have a new part of the coaching staff on record, it seems. Stay with us. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week. Visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Vibe Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla here. Now, Mitch, I was in the studio last night as the first word of this story broke. It was from CBS Sports NFL insider Jonathan Jones, who broke the story in the form that many people are doing so today. It looks like the Cleveland Browns might have their new special teams coordinator. There's not been an official announcement by the team yet, but multiple reports are surfacing in, one from NFL Network, another one from other Cleveland sources, that the Browns will be hiring Bubba Ventrone as their new special teams coach. Now, this is a guy who was considered a top candidate over the last 48 hours when it was announced that the Browns and special teams coach Mike Prefer were parting ways. And now it looks like it'll be a return for a former Cleveland player. Ventrone was a former NFL safety who spent 4 seasons with the Browns from 2009 to 2012 as part of a good special teams core around that time for Cleveland. And he's been a pretty solid coach over the last couple of years. He was with the Patriots for a number of seasons, won back-to-back, won a pair of Super Bowls with them in Super Bowls 51 and 53, and then took over the Colts special teams roster starting in 2018. And this seems to be kind of a swift pick. It's the offseason when we're really making a story out of who is going to be our special teams guy. But Ventrone, I think, can be somebody who can bring some solid ground to a Browns special teams core that had their struggles last season, whether it came to some of the kicking woes with Cade York. You had some times where it looked like the coverage on special teams wasn't that great. And you're hoping that this can be another gap that can be plugged to ensure that the Browns will have more success this season against their opponents.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mitch, because I think when you look at the Browns this past season, as much as you can get on players for miscues, how many times did we hear defensive players talk about miscommunication errors? And that's why we had receivers running wide open in the secondary. Same can go for the special teams unit, right? I think if there was two things that were the ultimate detriment to the Browns last year, it was the defense and the special teams. And look no further than the week 2 game where you're up 30-17 to the New York Jets with under 2 minutes to play, and you can't recover an onside kick. Cade York misses an extra point, which ended up being really a big issue the rest of the season with his field goals being blocked, his extra points being missed. The Browns, I believe, Mitch, finished last year 18th overall in the NFL in special teams, which to me is actually a lot higher than I would have anticipated because they were anything but special last year. Look at the Super Bowl, for example. Kadarius Toney's punt return, as deep as he got that, set up the Chiefs ultimately with position to win a Super Bowl after scoring. The Browns needed some new life. I don't like this hire. I love this hire because Ventrone is here. He has familiarity here. He had a 9-year NFL career, which also means he has a vested option and pension and healthcare from the NFL, which is a big deal to players. He's been around the block. He learned under Bill Belichick. He played here in Cleveland, and he had one of the top special teams units in Indianapolis. But Mitch, I think the bigger thing here, they hire him as the special teams coordinator. Teams can block other teams requesting permission to interview candidates for the same position.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns also now announced that, or not the Browns, excuse me, reports also now announced that Bubba Ventrone is the assistant coach for the Browns, meaning
saw this,
the Colts could not block that because the Browns are technically promoting Bubba Ventrone. So this is a big move for the Browns. And obviously there's going to be speculation already. Is this guy going to replace Stefanski if the Browns get off to a bad start? Because I think everybody that is a Browns fan knows Kevin Stefanski's on a hot seat. We'll have to wait and see. I think this tells you a lot about Bubba Ventrone because I think he ultimately took this, Mitch, because he has aspirations to be an NFL head coach here eventually. He's only 40 years old. He's a very young coach. He is a hot commodity among other staffs and teams in the NFL. He's also a fiery personality. Mitch, how many times have we talked about guys not getting into players on the sideline? And now you take Joe Woods off and replace him with Jim Schwartz, who immediately comes into his press conference and tells you he holds players accountable because it did not look like last year players were held accountable defensively. And Bubba Ventrone does the same, but also is a fiery personality that, Mitch, when you're playing football, I think you have to have somebody on the sideline that's not a player that can get players hyped up, get in their face a little bit, and get them to buy into what's going on. I love this hire. And realistically, Mitch, I think this also opens the door because I think you and I may have been in the same boat here when we hired Jim Schwartz. Oh, maybe that's the guy that replaces Stefanski if things go south because Schwartz has head coaching experience with the Lions. Now it almost looks like if things go south quickly for the Browns, which obviously we hope that is not the case because we want this team to win, it might be Bubba Ventrone who steps into the head coaching role, at least the interim tag for next season, but we'll have to wait and see. But Mitch, I personally love this hire. They got rid of their two biggest areas that hurt them last year in defense and special teams in terms of coaching. Now the players have to buy in, learn a new system. And I think this also tells you the Browns believe in the players they have. They necessarily didn't believe in the system and coaching staff in those respective rooms around the players. So to me, this says more the Browns think it was a coaching miscues last year than it was their players not being put or not being good enough to execute plays.
Yeah. And for most teams, it's easier to, I don't want to say cast off, but it's easier to put the reservations on the coaches in comparison to the players because you can get rid of them easier. You can get rid of a coach, you just say you're fired. Whereas with players, you have to deal with their salaries and their contracts, and you have to find ways to either coexist with them or break off the relationship so that you don't get left with a raw deal. With this, I mean, Ventrone was a former player. Obviously, we mentioned before he was for 4 seasons one of the top special teamers under the Browns cores that were under head coaches Eric Mangini and Pat Shurmur. He was a team captain in his final 2 seasons here and was a Pro Bowl alternate in 2010 for the number 1 ranked special teams unit in the league under special teams coach Brad Seeley. And when you look at some of the teams he's been able to coach with, obviously winning those Super Bowls with the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady Patriots, and you have him taking over in Indianapolis, where it didn't seem like he was part of the major issues that the Colts seem to have over the last couple of seasons. This seems like a very safe bet for Cleveland, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is an instance where, I'm not saying that Jim Schwartz is going to have be a disappointing head or a defensive coordinator by any means, but I could see this being a case where people could look at it about a year or two from now and be like, oh yeah, that getting Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator was great, but how about Ventrone though? He really beefed up the special teams, and that could be something that can really be the determining factor if the Browns can make a push back to the postseason. If you can get into a situation where you have these close playoff games, I don't know. It seems like something that we can look at as, yeah, it's kind of just adding to the staff as well. But you did bring up the point of if Stefanski were to get off to a bad start this year. I don't like that a lot of our conversations now, not just with you and I, but a lot of the Browns fandom in general is, well, if we hire this guy who's around like 40 or 50 years old, if you get this guy and this guy, he could take over. If Stefanski bombs out, he can take over. I don't like that mindset. I don't like that sort of that way of thinking that some of the fans get seeped into their minds. And granted, they're just trying to be what I consider to be realists or preppers, but it just kind of feels like we're thinking too far ahead before we have any actions carried out.
And that's fair. I think that you and I both, though, can agree that this is a make or break season for Kevin Stefanski.
I agree.
And that's, I think, why we're talking about this, because Mitch, I think last year, obviously I started the bus or the train by the end of the season. I think in week 3 or 4 I was off Stefanski. And so I think it's just typical, because I think a lot of Browns fans were frustrated. Also, does him being the assistant coach now, does that mean he's going to maybe help Stefanski when it comes to management of the game? Mitch, how many times last year did Kevin Stefanski's biggest fault become time management or decision-making? Is Bubba Ventrone going to be somebody now that's in the headset with Kevin Stefanski and helping him make some decisions that ultimately cost the Browns a couple games last year? I mean, let's be honest with that. And so we'll see. I'm excited though, because I like the fact they're getting some new blood in here. I love the Jim Schwartz hire. I know I was the Brian Flores guy. I think Schwartz was definitely a great runner-up. I know Flores wanted to pursue head coaching opportunities, and he interviewed for Arizona, ultimately didn't get it. But I like the two guys they brought in because they're hard-nosed football guys that are going to hold players accountable. And I personally don't think that you're going to see a lot of turnover in terms of players for special teams, Mitch, because the Browns are going to get a player back this year that we did not see play in any game action last year. Now, he's coming off a significant injury, and that's Jakeem Grant. He was signed to a 3-year deal to be our kick and punt returner. And a lot of the times, Mitch, last year, obviously outside of the Houston Texans game, in which Donovan Peoples-Jones returned that punt for a touchdown, the Browns were one of the worst teams in the NFL at returning punts and kicks for good field position. If Jakeem Grant comes back, and it's going to be hard because he is not at the beginning of his career, he's almost at the middle towards the end of his career, and an Achilles injury is a significant injury. But right away, Mitch, you might see a huge boost if Jakeem Grant is healthy as your full-time return man, a Pro Bowler, may I add, that was a return man. Now with Bubba Ventrone, I'm excited. I like where the Browns are at. I don't say that often. I really don't. Obviously, I think talking about last year after getting somebody with the talent and caliber at the quarterback position in Deshaun Watson, you couldn't really break that down because of all the off-field issues. But here we're talking about strictly football. And I hear you that you don't like this conversation, but I think it's something that's just natural because, it's only in Cleveland. We're the Browns. We're always prepared for the worst. But at the same time, I feel like this year we might be prepared for the worst, but it comes with reason. And that's why I actually feel confident now, knowing that as we head into the season, they need to make some changes with player personnel. I think you and I can agree they need to get bigger on the defensive line. And we can break all that down probably later this month or in March once the combine happens and we see what happens with some other free agents. But I can't believe I'm going to say this. I feel good with where the Browns are at right now. I really do.
I like this one bit that I got from NFL.com. I don't know if you looked over if it was Rick Gosselin's special teams rankings, but you mentioned the Browns are around 18th in the league in special teams production. The Colts last year were at number 8 in the league, and they led the NFL with a 27.8 yard average on kickoff return. So it's curious. I like where that sort of situation may go. We'll get to back to the NFL at some point because there's some stories that I do want to get into later on, but we will be right back right after this quick break.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. All care.
All care, all care. Where you matter.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla. So going into this segment, Mitch, we got a number of topics that we could potentially get to. Some NBA talk. I mean, the Cavaliers are coming back tonight against the Denver Nuggets. That game will be at the Fieldhouse. Will you be taking part in the MeVsNuggets challenge by any chance?
What's funny about this, Mitch, is I asked my dad this morning. I said, "Hey, are you going to be doing the MeVsNuggets challenge?" He goes, "Oh, well, what's that mean?" I said, "You have to eat more chicken nuggets than the Denver Nuggets score points." He didn't believe me that was a thing. Safe to say, my father, MeVsNuggets challenge. I remember a couple years ago seeing a person try to do it, and I think that was the game the Nuggets may have scored over 130 points or something crazy like that.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, because it may seem weird out of context, what MeVsNuggets may sound like. I think it was Wayne Embry's kids back in 2011. This is based on a Complex article I'm reading it up on, who started the challenge back in 2011, where it's Cavalier fans attempting to eat at least one McDonald's Chicken McNugget for each point the Denver Nuggets score during a Cavs Nuggets game. So let's say the Nuggets tonight score 126 points. Well, fans, in order to win this challenge, would have to eat at the bare minimum 127 Chicken McNuggets. I have to look up now. This whole thing is leading me down a rabbit hole because I should have gotten this stuff done before. But I'm looking up the nutrition facts for chicken McNuggets. If I can get it up here, there are 420 calories in a 10 piece of chicken McNuggets, which was my go-to at McDonald's for a number of years, along with a large fries and a large Sprite. And then they are made up of 56% fat, 25% carbs, 18% protein. So if you take the 420 calories that are in the 10 McNuggets, and let's say the nuggets have about 12 or 120 points tonight, you're going to sit there with about 5,000 calories worth of chicken McNuggets in your stomach. And now I'm just going to look up after this podcast what physical activities it would take to burn off 5,000 calories worth of nuggets. I'm sure it's going to be like 800 minutes of walking or something like that, or like 19 hours of aerobics. But I will not be partaking part in this challenge. I am well past my days of, well, contrary to the way I look, I'm well past my days of McNuggets and the amount that I was eating back in the day. But God bless all the people who are going to be trying to do this tonight.
I don't know how. Like there's no way I could mentally get ready to even try a challenge like this. Now, I will say when I was a freshman in college, there was a bar around the corner that did a tater tot eating challenge that Mitch, I was so ready to sign up for, but it was at a bar. I was a freshman. I was not 21, so I was not eligible to partake in it. I was very disappointed.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
For tater tots?
Yeah, because it took place after a certain hour, so you had to be 21 to get in.
Oh, okay, I see.
If you completed the challenge, you got, or I think if you were in the challenge, you got X number of free alcoholic beverages. If you defeated the challenge or won the challenge out of all the contestants, you got some prize that was absurd. But like that, to me, I could do because I love tater tots.
I forgot
That's
Larry.
Also the carbs,
I forgot Larry.
filling,
Yeah.
but
I forgot Larry Nance Jr. took part in this this challenge. It was back in February of 2 years ago. It said he ate about 100 nuggets, which is insane to me. Would you go with McDonald's nuggets or would you go with another? Do you have to go? Is the rule you have to go McDonald's or do you have to? Can you choose anywhere you would go with? Because I don't think I could eat 100 chicken McNuggets. I could eat 100 Chick-fil-A nuggets, but I don't think I could eat.
Well, see, that's what I was going to say. I don't think a Chick-fil-A nugget. It has the name nugget, but if you're comparing the size, I don't think that really qualifies compared to the size of a chicken nugget from a Wendy's or a McDonald's.
That's fair.
Or even a Burger King. So I'm not sure because I think I could. I mean, Chick-fil-A is also just so good. So good. I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't.
Name me a meal they miss on. They don't. So you can't answer that question.
I wouldn't even bring Burger King nuggets into this whole conversation. No offense to the Burger King. You gave us the chicken fry and I love you for it, but this is not the way you make chicken McNuggets. But there was another story in the NBA that I wanted to get to. This is interesting because the Atlanta Hawks recently fired their head coach, Nate McMillan. There was some dumb tweet the other day where it was like, you either die a hero or you live long. Something like he lived long enough to see himself become the McVillain. And all the replies are like, get out. But the whole thing was now they're looking for a new head coach. Originally, I thought it's going to be a pretty simple, quick hiring of Quinn Snyder because there are reports that he was going to be in the mix. Obviously, a guy who has led the Utah Jazz to some success. But there might be a candidate that recently lost his job that might be a leading candidate as well. There was a report from Mark Stein that Ime Udoka, who was the head coach of the Boston Celtics last year before getting suspended for all the stuff that happened in the offseason, he might be the guy after he was replaced by Joe Mazzulla, who recently signed the contract extension, which we've talked about here on the show. And we have a clip up on our YouTube channel. You can check that out. I mean, it's not a great look in Atlanta right now. They're around 500 when this is a team that was in the conference finals, 2 years ago? And they've just been a disappointment since. Trae Young just seems not happy there. You get rid of your coach. And I thought Snyder, who I forgot was an assistant coach under Mike Budenholzer when he was in Atlanta, has done well in Utah. And I personally would take him right now over Udoka, even though Udoka is the reigning Eastern Conference winning coach. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, though, because they're not the only two candidates here in this mix.
I think the Udoka one is it's tough to argue for one side versus the other, Mitch. You mentioned it. This is a guy that just took the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. On the flip side, was it really him? Because here they are now with one of the youngest head coaches in the NBA, and they're still the number 1 seed in the East. And I think that, yes, the NBA is star player driven. There's no doubt about that. But I also think you can tell a lot about a coach by what he can get out of his team when the stars are out and when they don't have as much star power. And the fact the Celtics are right back there now without Udoka makes you wonder, is he as good of a coach as we may have thought? At the same time, the issues with Udoka, Mitch, that stems with the Celtics. Because if it was an NBA league-wide violation, he would not be eligible to be a head coach right now. This was a punishment from the Celtics to remove him as the coach for this season, which ultimately they decided to go in a different direction and extend Mazzulla. He's a guy that has experience, as does Quinn Snyder. I think the knock on Quinn Snyder, though, and this goes back to my first point I just made, is the Jazz had those good teams. Could they not get over the hump because of the players, or was it because of the coaching? There's going to be a lot of candidates here. I think a lot of people would want to coach this team because they are still young. They do have star players like DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and some other young players there. But this is a Hawks team, Mitch, I think that a lot of people assumed were going to be fighting to be in the top 6. And here they're 29-30 as we're sitting here recording this. And there's been a lot of people. And this is the thing, is people on social media, Mitch, fire hot takes all the time. I do it. Okay. I do it sometimes to be funny. People this year saying Trae Young sucks. Trae Young in his career in the regular season, Mitch, averages 25.5 points per game. He's up a full 1.2 points per game in his scoring average this year. He's also down 3 percentage points in 3-point shooting. Trae Young is doing more scoring, just not behind the 3-point line like we're usually seeing. He doesn't suck. Like, Trae Young is still a very good basketball player. I mean, the numbers don't lie. They played 52 games this year, and he's averaging 1.2 points per game more. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's a Trae Young thing. I think that's ultimately why the Hawks decided to move off McMillan. You mentioned Trae Young doesn't seem happy. I'm sure that was also a thing. If Trae Young doesn't look happy to the viewers on the floor, what does he look like behind the scenes? What does he look like in practice? And if your franchise superstar isn't happy, Mitch, you're going to do whatever you can to make him happy. I don't know where the Hawks go, though. I don't know if I want to go after Udoka. I don't know if Quinn Snyder, with as much success in the regular season he had in Utah, you're talking about the equivalent Utah Jazz only in the East, right? The Atlanta Hawks are known for what? Having great regular seasons and then choking in the playoffs. Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, now granted, a lot of those years we're running into LeBron James. I get like that's not necessarily
and that was
an
an
indictment on the team.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Budenholzer. I just don't know where they go. I mean, are the Hawks a team that might try to go for a younger coach? Do they look to Trae Young's college coach? Do they look to get somebody younger in here? Or Mitch, do they try to go get a coach that is on a team that sucks, that is ultimately proven he's one of the best coaches of all time and here's a hot take, Greg Popovich?
No, I can't see it. I like where you're going. I think he's just going to stay with the Spurs up until he's either retired or dead, basically. And nothing against that pick. It's honestly, it's an interesting one, but I saw Mike D'Antoni last night too. It was among the reports, and like Mike D'Antoni's coached half the league at this point, so like it wouldn't be that surprising. Yeah. But it just feels like, I don't know. This is what was it? Jazz are 11th in the. They're actually around this. They're actually the same, almost the same exact record as Atlanta is. The difference is though the West is considerably better than the East competitively. I mean, look at some of the teams that are in 6 through 10 right now. It's Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota, Golden State, and Oklahoma City. Then you go to the 6 through 10 in the East. It's the Knicks, the Heat, the Hawks, the Wizards, and the Raptors. I would take the West over any of those matchups if they were to play like an East-West thing in the first round of the playoffs. By the way, we do have some breaking news, and I wish we had a breaking news ticker, even though we don't do the show live. Peter Schrager of Good Morning Football and NFL or FoxSports.com says that the Denver Broncos are hiring Vance Joseph as their next defensive coordinator. That was 3 minutes ago.
Oh,
so Vance Joseph, for those that remember, was a longtime defensive coordinator and assistant for many teams and was head coach of the Broncos from 2017 to 2018. I believe that was him succeeding Gary Kubiak as head coach after Kubiak won the Super Bowl with the Peyton Manning Broncos, more like the Von Miller Broncos. This is interesting because we saw a number of interesting names that Sean Payton was reportedly bringing in. There was what was it? Rex Ryan was reportedly in the mix. Matt Patricia visited the team yesterday, but you don't normally. Here's what I said last night on the radio: you don't normally see a guy who was a head coach of a team at one point gets fired and then comes back to the team in a different position that was lower than head coach. But literally, I just saw Dom Capers at the Carolina Panthers podium the other day, Lego hair and all. But yeah, that's an interesting hire for the Denver Broncos. Did you see that, by the way, the Dom Capers press conference? You did, and you didn't want. It's one of those. It's one of those cases where you don't have anything nice to say, so you don't say anything. I got you because I was hoping you wouldn't, and then I get to pull up the clip because that would have been amazing. But yeah, I just we're all aware, and he's making it work for what he's doing. But that's our breaking news there in our basketball segment. I think I'm going to stick the next topic I was going to have for the next segment. So when we come back, there's a very interesting story that happened late last night in the South in college basketball, and then we'll get into some other NFL potential topics right after this. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef.
No! Level up.
Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla. Mitch, I got to pull out some props for this one. Do you remember this 30? Well, it's not a 30 for 30, but it was an ESPN Films documentary that came out a few years ago, the Fab Five. It was about the Michigan basketball team in the early 90s, like the Jalen Rose, Jimmy Webber, Chris Webber, all those guys from that era, the freshmen that kind of changed college basketball. Well, one of the points in this story was when Jalen Rose was at a drug bust during his playing days at Michigan. Was not formally charged, it seems, with anything, but people kind of gave him some slack for it. He went out and had one of the best games of his college career against Illinois. Well, that was, with all respect to Jalen Rose and what he had to go through that night, that might pale in comparison to what happened last night between Alabama and South Carolina. The previous 24-ish hours had been pretty crazy for one Alabama player, Brandon Miller, who I'm making sure to try and get all the details right in this. First off, he scored a career high 41 points last night as the number 2 seeded Crimson Tide beat South Carolina in overtime, 78-76. Now, Miller has been kind of getting under some scrutiny in the last day or two, as police testimony revealed on Tuesday tied Miller to the scene of a crime where his former teammate Darius Miles and another man, Michael Davis, were arrested after 23-year-old Jamia Harris died in a campus shooting in January. It was AL.com reported that the findings included Miller bringing the gun to the scene of the crime and receiving text messages from Miles referencing the weapon. Now, Miller has not been officially charged with any crime as of now, and it doesn't look like he's going to, as the case, it seems, has been dealt that the gun was left by, I'm trying to make sure I got it right here, Miles in Miller's car. He texted him asking him to bring him his gun back. Miller did so, and then the gun was used to do what was carried out. I believe it was Tuscaloosa Chief Assistant District Attorney Paula Whitley said on Tuesday, quote, "There's nothing we could charge him with," unquote. And then legal experts, according to this Yahoo Sports article I have on Wednesday, said that the statement suggests Whitley and her colleagues lack sufficient evidence to prove that Miller intended to assist in a crime. So that it's a gray area to the point where I understand why charges haven't been filed out yet personally, because there's a connective point to all this, where is he directly responsible for the actions that are carried out? He wasn't the one that committed the action. It's just that he was part of the domino effect that led to this. And whether or not you think he's innocent or guilty, it opens the door for public scrutiny like this, to the point where there were reports that some people were saying lock him up at the game the other night, and we can never really tell. This is the same week where I heard people say, "Oh, Kyrie Irving was booed after LeBron picked him the All-Star game," and it felt like 5 people were booing him at the game at the NBA All-Star draft. But that is, and it's such a weird way to describe it too when it comes to sports, because there's obviously a difference between sports and then the outer parts of society. But to score a career high when you're going through that almost has to feel like, I don't know if it's therapeutic or if it's pressurizing. I don't know how to describe it other than it's surreal. I should say, because that's a lot of weight to be put on you in a given moment as a college kid. If he was like a professional, it'd be amazing. But the fact that he's still in school, and it doesn't look like it's going to be an effect on him or the team moving forward. I mean, it might be, who knows, but it was a very fascinating, weird sense of being I saw last night between the Tide and the Gamecocks.
You mentioned a crazy 24 hours for Alabama. Mitch, this is actually a crazy 72, 96 hours because earlier this week, their head coach, Nate Oates, made some controversial comments that he then rescinded and tried to correct and go back. But to your point, Mitch, not only did he have a career high, this is the most points scored by a freshman in any Division I basketball game this season in the country. He hits the game time layup with 4.1 seconds and then hits the winner with 9/10 of a second left on that game clock. Mitch, I don't want to speak for him. This is me guessing. I feel, though, that if he was really worried or this was a giant distraction, he would not have been able to go out there and perform like he did last night. And there's obviously multiple reports, multiple news outlets you can go to and read articles on this. Everybody with a different opinion. You want to find one with the facts. And the fact of the matter is, and why he hasn't been indicted yet, is there was no sufficient evidence showing that that gun was going to be used to carry out the crime that was eventually carried out.
Right.
Not only that, he had a gun in his car that wasn't his, Mitch. What happens if he gets pulled over for a traffic violation? That gun's found.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about he's going to get in trouble. I mean, what I see here, and not that I'd ever want to be put in this position, but he took the gun back to the owner who asked for the gun back. From what we can tell from the facts provided, he had no idea the crime was going to be committed. And I also would probably want to get rid of a firearm that's not mine that somebody left in my car. Right? I mean, let's just call it for what it is. It looks bad, though, because of what happened afterwards.
Sure.
And I get it. But him having his career game last night, and a game Alabama absolutely needed to get after they were the 1 seed, they got beat. And then the coaching comments this week from Oates. This was a big time player from a kid, Mitch, that realistically will be a first round draft pick if he goes to the NBA from all accounts of what you read and see about this player. It's going to be hairy to see what happens here. I'm not going to sit here and say he won't or he will be indicted. It's a very tough situation, but he was able to block out the noise because I think what a lot of people forget, Mitch, is athletes are humans too. They have to leave the gym eventually and go back to their real life.
Yeah.
And he was able to take all the distractions off the court, put it aside, and help lead his team to an overtime victory over South Carolina last night. That was a huge victory, 78-76. And I give him credit for that, strictly as a basketball player, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I think should or shouldn't happen to a kid, right? He's younger than us.
Yep.
A kid, what should happen in legal matter, but that's just my 2 cents. But I mean, what a game.
Yeah.
I mean, like I mentioned, the most points scored by anybody or any freshman in a Division I basketball game this year. That's extremely impressive.
So just to go back to what you were saying about Nate Oates' comments, by the way, I actually, when he was at Buffalo, Nate Oates actually wasn't part of a post-game press conference since the Bulls were playing Kent State that night. On Tuesday, police told the grand jury that Miller supplied the gun. At a press conference later that afternoon, Oates gave a press conference over why Miller was still on the team. Because at that point, people were wondering, why is he still playing? Why is he still, why on the court? Coach said, quote, "We knew about that. Can't control everything everybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any type of trouble, nor is he in any type of trouble in this case. Wrong spot at the wrong time," unquote. And on Wednesday, Oates addressed his comments on Tuesday afternoon, saying, I'm not here to make excuses, but I want to make it clear I didn't have the details from the hearing that morning since I was coming straight from practice, and I used a poor choice of words, making it appear like I wasn't taking this tragic situation seriously, which we have throughout the course of it, which we have throughout the course of it, unquote. I sincerely apologize for that. So, I mean, it was addressed. I did kind of see the buildup of it last night. It really seemed like it was a lot of, I don't want to say it was just pro Alabama fans versus non-Alabama fans, but there was one particular name, and I won't say it on air. I'll tell you afterwards, but there was one name that kind of came up that some Tide fans did not appreciate this person's take on the matter. Getting away from these types of topics that we don't normally discuss here on the show because, you know, we're just two dudes sitting in a room or different rooms, I guess. Lamar Jackson. He might not be a Baltimore Raven for much longer if reports turn out to be true, because this whole talk of him with the contract extension being 9 figures off potentially with him and the Ravens is a rough look. Then you have what happened at the end of the season where he basically tweets out his own injury report saying, yeah, I'm not playing. No, I'm not playing. And then the team loses that playoff game to the point where I think I even saw one report say that there was a person in the Ravens organizations that said he probably could have played, but how are you going to tell a guy, like, if he's that scared to play, like, don't play or go out there and play. And there have been some reports swirling up of, what could potentially happen in the offseason. Are the Ravens going to do? There was a talk on the Fan yesterday of if you were the Giants and you had the opportunity to trade for Lamar Jackson and give up Daniel Jones and 2 first-round picks, would you do it?
Yeah, I would. With what Daniel Jones is reportedly asking right now in terms of a contract extension, you're talking about a MVP in the National Football League, a quarterback that is better than Daniel Jones, that probably can do more things at a higher level than Daniel Jones. I would do it. I mean, don't you think that although Daniel Jones played well this year, you have to give him his flowers. He proved a lot of people wrong. You're talking about an MVP. And when healthy, Mitch, one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. Not to mention, what could somebody with the mindset of Brian Daboll do with Lamar Jackson in that offense? Also, then with Saquon Barkley. You saw what Daboll did with Josh Allen with no running game. You saw what Daboll did with Daniel Jones with a running game. Now you add in a better runner, a better overall quarterback with Saquon Barkley. Giants would be scary. The Giants would be very scary. And to your point that his time in Baltimore might be coming to an end, there was a new mock draft put out by CBS Sports yesterday, Mitch. They had the Baltimore Ravens taking CJ Stroud 8th overall. You're not taking a quarterback with your first overall pick if you're going to re-sign Lamar Jackson.
I swear to God.
It's as simple as that.
I swear to God.
I know.
When J.K. Dobbins got drafted by them in the 3rd round 2 years ago, I was like, really? Of all the team? Really? Like, this is the guy. But yeah, if they were to take Stroud and we have to face him 2 times a season, I mean, first of all, he might bomb out in the NFL. Who knows? But I don't want to think about that as an high score. I like it when they're far, like Justin Fields. You're far away from the Browns. You don't have to worry about him unless there's a Super Bowl matchup ever. We're fine. When it's in division, it's like, I mean, Joe Burrow's kind of the exception because we all still like Joe Burrow, but there's Ohio State fans shouldn't adopt him. Whatever. He still considers it Ohio State fan.
He has
SEC
a
dummies.
He has a piece of paper that says he graduated from the Ohio State University.
He wore the uniform.
He wore
the uniform. I mean, granted.
Also, like, to your point, like Cam Hayward, when the Steelers took him, I was so mad because I loved Cam Hayward at Ohio State. And now he's still tortured us for years on that Steelers defense. So I get it. I don't want to see this man go anywhere in the division. Please just go play for like the Atlanta Falcons or something. Exactly.
I mean, has there been an Atlanta? Now you got me thinking about that rabbit hole too. And granted, I'd first wear, with all due respect to Ohio State, who they've had a rough week too, because we talked about it earlier this week. The 2 dudes at the hockey game the other day, who were drinking up a storm, other people's backwash at the stadium. Which was gross. Thank you for all that watched it on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, by the way. But yeah, I would rather buy a Joe Burrow his senior night jersey with the way it's spelled. Yeah. I would wear that over the Ohio State jersey most days of the week. I mean, nothing against the scarlet and gray. Don't get me wrong; it's the best colors imaginable for a college team. But that was a crisp looking uniform that Heisman trophy winning player was wearing. Any other topics before we head on out here today, Mitch?
No, Mitch, I think I'm going to make my fact of the day a story that I wanted to make sure we addressed today.
Sure.
Because reports of 18 hours ago and now trickling into today. A moment of silence, please, for most people's favorite Cleveland Guardian of all time. Brian Shaw has signed with the Chicago White Sox. And he will have a realistic chance to be in that bullpen now after Garrett Crochet is out for the year with Tommy John surgery. Liam Hendricks is under treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma. It leaves the late inning relievers for the White Sox to Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly, Aaron Bummer, Ronaldo Lopez, and Jake Dykman. So Brian Shaw may be pitching against the Guardians this year.
Look, man, Brian Shaw had a great number of seasons here with the Indians, his first run out. Then it didn't look like he was ever going to pitch in the majors again after he signs with Colorado. Comes back to the Guardians. Somehow worked his way back up. And for the 2021 season, looked pretty good. Looked like he was a veteran presence that could do some things. The next year, he gets bit by the long ball virus. He just kept giving up home run after home run after home run. But I give him credit. That was a situation where the Guardians were really, really struggling with injuries to the point where he was making the only starts of his career. It was weird that they were doing that, but at the same time, I give him credit for being a veteran presence in a locker room full of 20 to 26-year-olds, basically just the whole Guardians roster. I don't know. It's who even knows if he's going to make a serious. I mean, I know you said he might have a chance to be in the the bullpen for the White Sox, but at the same time, who even knows if he's going to make that serious of an impact? And I just saw the tweet you sent me of the Jared Allen quote regarding the Kevin Love thing. We were talking about in the air last night too, like the Kevin Love thing. We're all saying it as if it's going to happen, that the Cavs are going to face the Heat in the first round, and he's going to come off the bench and make 3 corner threes in a row, and we're going to lose by that. I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Hey, maybe he does the Corey Kluber. Maybe he gives up a game-winning basket, much like Corey Kluber gave up the walk-off.
I don't like
Gonzalez.
I don't like to think about much like you said about like kind of like what we said about Ohio State players going to rival teams in the NFL. I don't like to think about that. I like that Corey Kluber signed for one more year, so we don't have to have his last memory be him walking off that field, because that was the only thing I didn't like about Oscar's moment, was that you had to see him walk off, no, like most of his career, no expression on his face, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to see him go out that way. So thankfully he'll have a chance to redeem himself this coming year. All right, thanks guys for watching the Big Time Sports Podcast show. We mentioned all the stuff earlier, and yeah, you just said fact of the day. So thank you for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast show. Throw the pen at the camera.